Hi, everybody. Dr. Friedman here, and it's week 2, day 2 in the TTRPG Actual Play Research Seminar. Today we had our first class visitor, which was an incredibly important and enriching part of the first TTRPG course. Although, in the first time around, it was total serendipity. I had the good fortune of people asking me if it was okay for them to come and visit my class via Zoom. And of course, the wonderful thing about working with actual play performers, and quite frankly, just about anybody in this space these days, is we all have excellent connections and headphones and mics and all of that sort of thing. And on my end, I have a classroom that is wired for video and sound for precisely these kinds of occasions. So, this is an interesting video in the sense that it's kind of irrelevant for my students unless they have a curiosity as to how the sausage is made or want a reminder of the things that we talked about and the prep we did this day. Because the entire class visit is available to them through a recording on Zoom that will be posted on the Canvas site. So that's my first note, which is to say, it's important to me as a general rule to make it clear to our class visitors that it's their choice about whether the video gets released or not. Some people really like that sense of their knowledge being disseminated, and that's really important. But also, sometimes people want to talk very candidly in ways that they feel comfortable with in an educational space, but they wouldn't necessarily be comfortable with in the open web. Both of those things can be true, and so I give people the choice. As of right now, I don't know that the video is going to be released, and that's fine. Um, Nothing scandalous was said. Just it's rare that someone requests that I release the video footage from a class visit. So that's kind of how it works. For preparation today, we looked at the history of Acquisitions Incorporated, one of the earliest actual plays. It's a great case study if you're looking to introduce the concept of actual play and its transformations across time into your class, because it has basically existed in every possible form. It has existed in live conference performance. It has existed in podcast only. It has existed in a kind of filmed for television style format, edited close down to time. And it has existed in a live Twitch streaming format with the C team. So it's really good in that way, in addition to being kind of one of the touchstones for many of the actual play folks that are, in the mix these days. Kate was great to have as an interlocutor after students had kind of done that overview to talk about the mechanics of what it means to run games like this in these different kinds of formats, what the challenges and the pleasures are in all kinds of ways, as well as bringing her sensibility as a professional narrative designer, both for video games and for TTRPG, and talking about the distinction between those two, right? So when you're designing a TTRPG adventure, you have to deal with the fact that it's not character driven by and large. And the characters who are going to be working in this world are as many as there are stars in the sky in many ways. You're not setting down rails as a general rule, but instead kind of making a world that can be extremely non-linear in many cases. And that was really useful for us to be talking about this early on. Kind of what are the affordances of specifically D&D, some gestures to other systems, like Blades in the Dark, that have other kinds of mechanics, some of her perspective on why D&D is the 800-pound gorilla in the space. Short answer is it's not mechanics, it's culture. Generally speaking, the energy was extremely high in the room. Students had great questions, and I'm very pleased with how it went. I highly recommend this as a introductory kind of module and experience, even without Kate, although Kate is great. And I'm so glad she was able to give of her time in that way. On Tuesday, we'll have another class visitor, and we're going to pivot to a completely different way of looking at the world of actual play. So instead of kind of a sustained engagement with Dungeons and Dragons, what Jeff Stormer has done for almost as long with his podcast Party of One is explore many different systems. And his podcast is designed to be a showcase for basically games that you can play with just one other player and in a variety of different genres, formats, mechanics, and what have you. So we're going to get to pivot away from D&D, at least for a little while. Like I said, D&D is kind of inescapable. But what I'm looking forward to with Tuesday is our ability to talk about, first of all, the Born audio podcast space and actual play, which means that we'll start to talk about questions about editing, questions about system selection, questions about kind of different players in these kinds of ways that really weren't something that was going to come up in this particular conversation about, kind of performance and the affordances of one system. So very pleased at how this week has gone and looking forward to week